Good afternoon and welcome to the Tempe City Council Work Study Session for September 6th, 2018 here in the Harry E. Mitchell Government Center. The first items on our agenda is our call to the audience for the issue review session and the committee of the whole items. Audience members have up to 3 minutes to address the City Council. If you would like to speak on an item, could you please fill out a speaker's card, which can be found in the back of the council chambers, and hand it to our Deputy City Clerk, Dusty. She's standing waving her hand, and I will call your name when it is your turn to speak. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the council right now? Because I don't have any cards. Can you please get my attention? Seeing none, I'll close that portion. The first item is for the issue reviews our Tempe Transit Program. I think we have some of our staff coming up. Mr. Iverson. Welcome.
Thank you.
I sold some of those rails at the scrap metal yard. Is that a problem?
In the scrap yard?
Yeah, they're recyclable.
No.
They've been sitting there a while.
They are
Those are-
recyclable.
they're
They're
so
reusable. They're getting ready to.
But we need them now.
In my hands.
Yeah, we're getting exactly. We have good news on that front. We're getting ready to use them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So I'm Eric Iverson, Transit Manager in Transportation. I'm here with Sam Stevenson, our Senior Transit Planner in Transportation. And just wanted to mention too that we have the GM of First Transit, our service operator in the East Valley, that's also present here, and that's Roger Chapin. And then our bus service delivery manager, Scott Wisner from Valley Metro, is also here in case we have any questions that the council needed answered that we couldn't answer. So we're sharing a lot of information tonight. We'll try and get through it as quickly as possible. We are combining some of the previous.
I'm sorry. We have Vice Mayor Lauren Kuby. She's on the phone. Right, Councilman or Vice Mayor?
Hello, everyone. Is this loud?
Yep, we're good.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Iverson, you and Sam can continue.
Thank you. So we are combining this with what you had previous as quarterly updates on the streetcar. So technically, even though we didn't put in the title, this is this 26th update on the streetcar project. We're not asking for direction tonight. We just want to share a lot of information and certainly welcome to, as always, to the feedback that you all have. So we'll go. I don't know if what are you saying?
If you want to give feedback,
Give
it's
the
okay.
We don't.
We don't. Hold on, I got 5 pages of feedback.
Yeah, I got 1 page here.
Oh,
So we'll go to the, oh, I have it. Forgot. So the items that we really specifically wanted to cover tonight is just a quick overview of our transit program, the services, and how we operate in Tempe and the region. Give you some of our ridership performance and trends and some of the thoughts on that. We'll move through that quickly. And then the next item was a previous council request, and that's really to give you an update on the performance of our contractor through Valley Metro, First Transit. And again, the GM is here tonight. A little bit of information on our transit security program, which has been something that you all have increased the budget on and has been a priority in the last several years. Obviously, again, an update on the streetcar project, and then some important upcoming dates that we have for transit in the next quarter, 6 months. So this is the performance measure. We wanted to remind you all this is a performance measure that you have selected that kind of looks at and rates our transit performance in Tempe. We're trying to get to an 80% satisfaction in the community. And we are sharing with you the previous 4 survey performance numbers, 66, 69, 72, and 69% respectively for the last 4 times that we surveyed the community. We are currently, as of tonight, starting the next round of our community survey. So that is happening for 2018. So by fall, we should have new numbers on that for you to share, and hopefully we're moving that metric closer to that 80. We did want to mention too that these numbers we verified the survey is statistically significant, and there is a 4.9% margin of error within the numbers that you see there. The council's very aware of the programs that we offer. We want to just remind everyone and just give a little bit more detail on it, and this is something that is helpful to the community too. We have a really robust program. There's 15 local routes in Tempe on our major streets. So these are the buses that are on Rural Road, McClintock, like our major streets. 15 of those. We have 3 express bus routes that travel morning and evening in your rush hour commute times that are going from the East Valley and Tempe into downtown Phoenix. There's 3 of those. We have 7 neighborhood circulators. One is the Flash in the downtown. The others are our 6 orbit routes that have been really popular in the community. We have 6 miles of light rail as part of the 3-city light rail system, 9 stations, and we're looking to add, as you all know, 14 more stops and 3 miles of rail with the streetcar project that will launch in 2021 operationally. We also, as you all know, have ADA transport programs. These are our paratransit programs. There's two sides of that, ride choice and paratransit. We have the signature program, the Youth Transit Pass. It's unique to Tempe. This is something where we allow all Tempe kids under the age of 18 to get a free transit pass and use all of our transit. That's tremendously popular. We wanted to mention too, is this has been a regional initiative as well as a specific Tempe initiative to have, working towards sustainability and transportation and actually all elements of government. 96% of our fleet is clean burning or a clean energy fleet, so we wanted to mention that. And then our most recent numbers for the last 5 years is we've had 55 million boardings in Tempe. That's the second highest in the region behind Phoenix, third highest in the state. And then we do have the highest per capita boardings by a long shot in the region. So we have good ridership per Tempe resident, which is really a nice metric. How we operate the service, we want to, again, as I mentioned, we have contracted, as of 2013, contracted through Valley Metro through a competitive selection process, First Transit, and they've been operating since 2013. We work very closely with them. That includes the entire East Valley in addition to Tempe. We are moving into the final phase of that contract, so this would be starting in July 1 of 2019. The final 4-year extension of that contract, which would carry us through to June 30th of 2023. And at that point, or a year in advance of that, there would be a competitive selection process at the board. And of course, we would share with the council. The board would be involved in Valley Metro Board. The assets that we have, the buildings that we have to run our transit program are listed here. So we have Transportation Center, East Valley Bus Operations and Maintenance Center, which is multiple cities partnering in that. There's 600 buses roughly every day in and out of that facility. I'm sorry, 600 operators. 200 buses. Tempe owns, you all own, community owns a lot of the fleet. So we do purchase our own fleet, which is a little bit different than the rest of the East Valley. So we want to give you some of those numbers there. We also have a really strong program, as you all have pushed over the years, to have bus stop installations. So we're showing those numbers there. We continue to install bus stops as well as bus pullouts. We're working towards a new bus shelter design that will be another part of our kit of parts that we would add into the community in the next year. So we're looking to do that design, working with a local architect, and do something that really reflects kind of the direction of transit as well as the community's goals of sustainability and climate action. Oh, and one other item, the bus pullouts. As last year, you all had determined our prioritization of bus pullouts. So we have, by 2019, 16 of the top 40 that will be completed. So that's a big achievement. We've been working really hard on that of late. A snapshot of just a really simplified, I should say, picture of how we are spending our money, how you're all spending the transit fund and what it takes to operate our system. So we are spending, our budget for this year for all of our rail and bus operations that I mentioned previous is $41 million. $27 million of that is coming directly from the Tempe Transit Tax. And then we offset some of that with fare box recovery as well as federal grants and the Regional Transportation Plan and the Prop 400 money that goes towards our bus operations as well also helps to offset that. So we have $14 million in revenues that offsets that. But that's it is the largest chunk of the transit budget and is significant expenditures to make those projects and services happen. A little bit on ridership that we wanted to share with you all, and these are trends nationwide as well. So when I talk about the region, we're pretty similar to some of the kind of top 20 cities, metro areas across the country. Top line here is our regional bus. So this is all of our orbit system, Tempe system, as well as the entire region. Has experienced in recent years a decline in ridership. And that's what that blue line is indicating. In the last year, there was a slight uptick, and we attribute some of that to some of the new services that were offered, largely in Phoenix with the passage of their tax. So they added hours and added some new routes. Regional rail has stayed really very consistent. As you can see here, there was 9 years of growth in regional rail since we launched in 2008, and a slight decrease last year. That's pretty normal for a system of that age, but we are looking at it. And then the bottom two lines are our Tempe rail and bus, and those have remained largely pretty steady, although they also are showing declines. We have some reasons for that and some things that we want to share with you. Some of those thoughts are, again, this is nationwide as well as typical with the region. We've seen with a strong economy, as we have all been experiencing, or have the national numbers have been experiencing, we've seen a little bit of a decrease in transit ridership. Uber and Lyft have entered the market in the last 10 years and have, we think, eaten into some of that travel, and a lot of that could be the first and last mile. We'd like to look towards working with those companies. There's a new partnership with Valley Metro and Waymo that has just been launched as of a couple weeks ago. So we'd like to work with those companies. We think there's a complement there, not necessarily competition. Fuel prices went down, car ownership went up. Those types of things help to eat into public transit. Some of the local thoughts on that we're working on and some of the reasons are included here as well. Again, we saw a little bit of a decrease in our local bus. We see strong ridership and strong sense of pride in our orbit, so we're focusing a lot on that right now. We did see also, both in Phoenix and Tempe, a little bit of a ridership decrease in our student population. We're working on some of the things to bring that back. We're lowering our U-Pass, the student kind of universal bus pass, lowering that price, working with ASU and City of Phoenix and Valley Metro. We're also working with them to try and promote and work on security issues as well to bring back some of that ridership.
Don't they have a bus?
They do have private shuttles. ASU has private shuttles going campus to campus. We think that helped to contribute to eat into some of the public transit ridership. Yeah, that's identified as the campus shuttles. So I mentioned some of these in the previous slide, and a lot of these aren't surprises. We have been active in the last year to really push. I know you've been hearing this from Valley Metro and seeing some of these campaigns. Hopefully, when you're on the computer, when you're riding transit, you've seen some of these campaigns that we've been launching in partnership with Valley Metro, or through Valley Metro, to bring back riders and to really bring a strong sense of security and comfort and accessibility to transit. Those are the Respect the Ride campaign, which I know we've shared with you in the past. You're seeing some of the images, some of the fun images on the screen here that are showing up on our platforms, showing up on the trains. We're going to be launching these as well with the bus system. We are working towards working with ASU and Valley Metro to reroute the Flash, which is our original downtown circulator. So we're looking to reroute that and better connect it to densities and new growth in the downtown. As I mentioned earlier, we have the $150 U-Pass, which is your student pass, gives you universal transit access. It was $200. We've just recently, ASU has just agreed to recently lower that to $150, so we're hoping to bring back some of the ridership through that. And then, of course, this is really important. We want to build a community, physically build a community, partner with community development, economic development, and try and build structures and multifamily housing that complements transit, really encourages use of transit. So we're working closely with community development as well as through the Urban Core Master Plan. And then with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sam, who's going to give you a little bit of the 5 metrics that we use to measure the performance for First Transit.
Thanks, Eric. So as Eric mentioned, the existing 3-year agreement with First Transit is due to expire in 2019. And at that time, a 4-year extension is available as a contract option. That would extend through 2023. So I'm going to give a brief overview of the 5 key performance indicators that are reported to us monthly by Valley Metro. So every month we monitor on-time performance, accidents, customer complaints, mechanical failures, and the percentage of revenue mileage completed. And now for each metric, I'm going to show you a graph that compares the performance, the bars on the chart, to our performance standard, which is the orange line. And in each case, we want to be either above or below the line, so I'm going to point that out. So the first metrics here, on-time performance, the standard is 92%. We want to be at least 92% on time. That's the orange line. In this case, we want to be above the line. And you can see for the past 3 years, we've been trending positively. For the past 2 years, we have exceeded the standard for on-time performance. And what this is a measure of schedule adherence. So it compares the number of trips that operate on time to the number that don't, or that operate late. Next metrics is accidents per 100,000 total miles operated. Our standard is 0.9 accidents per 100,000 miles. and in this case, we want to be below the line. We want fewer accidents. For the past 3 years, we've been operating below the line. So no concerns here. This is a reflection on the contractor's safety and training program, so something that we definitely take seriously. The third metric, customer service, we measure complaints per 100,000 boardings. Candidly, this is one area that we continue to monitor. We continue to have a few concerns with this. The standard is 45 complaints per 100,000 boardings. We want to be below the line. We feel like we have seen some slight improvement over the past 3 years. We're trending in the right direction, but really we're trying to partner very closely with Valley Metro and First Transit. We have a strong partnership. We've been listening to some of the concerns coming out of the community. You'll see on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, this is a training tool that we developed in partnership with First Transit and Valley Metro to really put some of the key issues, specifically for the Orbit service in this example, out in front of the operators. Other efforts, Valley Metro is working on a campaign called Respect the Rider. So Eric mentioned Respect the Ride, which promotes good behavior for passengers on the system. We're trying to promote respect to the passengers from the operators. So that's in the works, and we'll continue to monitor this metric as we move forward. The fourth.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, Vice Mayor?
Yes, Sam, I noticed regarding the complaints, and you're looking at the lines since they took over, First Transit took over, but when you look at the previous years from fiscal year 2011 to 2014, there really was a much lower percentage of complaints per 100,000 boardings. You have that in your memo, the more detail. So how concerned are you about that, considering it's not just the complaints in the years we've had the contract, but we saw a much smaller number of complaints in the previous contract?
That's correct, and we absolutely agree. You know, back maybe 5 or 6 years ago, prior to this contract, the complaints per 100,000 boardings were significantly less. We definitely want to work, you know, our efforts right now, our goal is to drive it down to that level or less. And that's why we have a strong partnership. I do want to mention, you know, it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison, because today the contract is for the entire East Valley. Back then it was specifically Tempe, so it has doubled in scope. But still, we feel as though there is a lot of improvement to be made in this area, and that's what we're working towards.
Okay, the accidents per 100,000 total miles were also less than the previous contract, and that may be related to a number of other variables, but is that a concern as well?
We feel as though the accidents are within range of where they were in the past, and we definitely can visit this, but the metric, the 0.9, that's something that was developed regionally. We looked at other contracts in the Valley, you know, those operated by other cities, and 0.9 is pretty standard, pretty reasonable, and we're not as concerned with this metric because we are exceeding our standard. But it's definitely something we can look into if you'd like.
I'm more concerned about the complaint variable, but thank you for all the information.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would just add that that is the area where we feel the most concerned too. It's obviously the metric where we're not meeting our goals, the complaint one. And so you all have heard many of the programs that we're trying to launch, including the Orbit. We're trying to train the region, work with First Transit and training our Orbit operators, that this is in a neighborhood. We're working specifically on some bike efforts, as you know, Vice Mayor. So we're really focusing on that. These complaints that we get, we're trying to put those into programs that are addressing it.
Quick question.
Councilman Navarro?
Thanks, Mayor. And the contract that's coming up, it's an extension to another 4 years, though.
Correct.
Correct on that. And when is that going to be coming up for us to
June
June
19.
to vote on?
So the way the regional system works now, as was established in 2012 and 2013, is the contract renewal goes through the Valley Metro Board, and that the date is October for that board meeting to renew that, look at renewing that contract.
This October?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're looking for action on October 18th. It's on the last slide. From the Valley Metro Board, obviously, Councilmember Arredondo Savage is the board member there. It's, the other East Valley cities are in partnership with that contract. We are, staff at this point is supporting the extension of that contract. We feel like we have been moving these metrics in the right direction, and we would like to continue that. And then, again, as I mentioned in the first couple of slides, the competitive process for getting a new contractor or looking at the, how the whole system operates would occur in 2022 then, to open that up for a competitive process.
Yes, Councilmember Adams.
What are the top 3 complaints that you're getting?
Well, I would leave some of that, I would look at a difference between Tempe and maybe the East Valley. I would say what we hear, what sifts through kind of, as Sam said, this is East Valley complaints. We get, I think there's, bicycle sensitivity, bicycle training, bicycle 3-foot law, kind of the operator and bicycle interface. Pass-ups, as we mentioned here, like a rider is waiting at a stop and they get passed up for a variety of reasons. And then safety security enters into the equation as well. I don't know actually technically what the top 3 would be, but those are ones that come to my mind right away that we're working on.
The top complaint category by a long shot is pass-ups. So people waiting for the bus and the bus doesn't stop for whatever reason, either maybe the people aren't visible, they don't flag the bus down. So we're really working with First Transit to emphasize, people don't necessarily need to signal the bus. If you see people in the vicinity of the bus stop, please stop, open the doors, ask them, would you like to board my bus? So part of our campaign. Yeah. And Valley Metro, I should mention, is actually, I didn't mention it before, they are launching a specific pass-up campaign to both directed towards passengers and operators. So it's going to be a big marketing push that you'll see coming forward soon.
We got
Oh,
here.
I'm sorry. Pause here.
On to, I think, the last metric, right?
Actually, the 4th metric here, mechanical failures per 100,000 revenue miles. Our standard here is 12 failures per 100,000 revenue miles. For the past 3 years, First Transit has exceeded our standard. And for FY18, I should mention, the performance in this category is better than it's been in the history of, that we can go back and track in the last 8-10 years. So we're very pleased about this. This reflects excellent performance of the maintenance team. It also reflects a very strong coordination between First Transit's operations department and maintenance, because of course buses do break down, and they're able to quickly and seamlessly coordinate a swap out in the field without a great impact to service. So this is great. And then finally, the 5th metric is percentage of revenue service completed. What this metric does is compares the number of miles scheduled in a given month to the number of miles that are actually completed. Our goal is 99.85%. We want to be above the line in this case, and for the past 2 years we have exceeded the standard and we're trending positively. And just to put this into perspective, within Tempe alone we operate around 5 million miles a year, so 99.85% of that is our goal.
All right, we're going back over to finish that with a couple of other updates that I will provide. We wanted to, as I mentioned earlier, give you some information on our transit security. This is something that we think directly ties to ridership and people's sense of satisfaction in the community and the region about transit. And so Tempe has increased the budget for transit security, and these are some of the programs that funding is going to. We're working very closely with the regional Valley Metro security team, and we have dedicated Tempe police for transit security that we work directly with. There is also the contracted security like we have at City Hall and other buildings that is on the train and as part of our system as well. As I mentioned earlier, we have the Respect the Ride campaign that really launched about 8 months ago, and that has been actively, putting up signs at platforms and paid fare zones and marketing campaigns, so to try and really get a nice, comfortable level of expectation for the rider experience around transit in the region. We have been working on enforcement, so we've been increasing enforcement whether that's paying your fare and just maybe some negative activities might be happening on the train or at stops, at bus stops. And so we have been really focused with the bus program really at our shelters and at our stops, and then with the rail program, it's been on board and on the platform with enforcement. In Tempe, we have been, we're characterizing the problems that we've had or the issues with enforcement and security. Those have been minor offenses. That's how Sergeant John King has characterized that for us. And then we just want to emphasize, because it's important to this community and our council has been particularly important, is that we are coordinating with, where appropriate, social service programs to bring those in when needed, homeless outreach, that kind of thing that could come into play. And we are measuring this transit security and people's perception of transit security through that transit satisfaction survey that's starting as of today, again, for our biannual survey.
I just want to compliment Valley Metro for really getting the Respect the Ride campaign out. I mean, that's some of the concerns I hear about safety, and talking with actually some ASU students and some faculty with Arizona State University. That's some of the big concerns that I hear is they don't feel safe, especially at certain times of the night or evening if they have a night class and coming back and forth. So I do want to thank Valley Metro for doing that, and I know some of the concerns we have in our community that by investing in the enforcement and helping enhance it, I think will help bring ridership back. So I just make sure that we're on top of that if you can.
Yeah, we agree, and that has been a real strong push with Valley Metro and working closely with all the communities. Finally, as you all know, we've had many updates over the last several years for the Tempe streetcar, and we're at a really critical juncture with that project, and we have shared recently through Friday packet memos the receipt of the signature on our letter of no prejudice. That's the third bullet item there. This really is the Federal Transit Administration signing off, allowing us to go into formal track and street construction. So previously we've been doing the utility work under the roadway in preparation for that track work. We're now permitted to move forward with that track work. So the track that the 4 stacks of rail that you've been seeing in the community, those will now be, we're looking to place those into the roadway starting as early as this fall, and obviously into 2019. We are continuing the work on coordinating with adjacent property owners and the intersection improvements at First-Rio to bring the roundabout project through. We don't have a set schedule on exactly when that would happen, but again, it's being partnered with the streetcar project construction. The history panels at the 14 stations, this is something has been of interest to the council, and those are really telling the story of Tempe and a particular area where the station is. We did this with the light rail project region-wide, and that will happen with this project as well. So that project process is starting and will be really active in 2019 to develop that language and those images. The Community Advisory Board, which is the community stakeholders, it's made up of neighbors, property owners, major representatives in the downtown and in the streetcar alignment. That board is being formed now, and they will work closely with Valley Metro and closely with our contractor to guide the project. We're also working on our how the streetcar will integrate with the rest of our transit system now, and then we have launched, as was approved by the council last year, the study to look at future possible extensions of the streetcar that could go into the next regional transportation proposals, regional transportation plan, or Prop 500. So we're in partnership, funding and steady partnership with Valley Metro and Mesa on that study. And then finally, just some important dates to share and to remind you all. We do have, as I mentioned earlier, the contract extension for the final 4 years of that contract with First Transit to operate our service coming up on October 18th, the Valley Metro Board. We are looking at, we continue, as we've shared with you, we continue to replace some of our aging fleet, particularly in the Orbit fleet. And so we're looking at testing. You will see that we will be testing new possible buses to add to our fleet. We're looking at a diversity of fleet sizes, so medium and large. And then we continue with our streetcar construction outreach, as well as the flash route study that I mentioned earlier. And then we'll be back to you in November for an update on Orbit, and particularly Orbit Saturn.
Great. Councilman Granville.
Two comments. Number one, I love the sort of monthly ridership numbers that you send us. I find them really fascinating about how, like what routes are being utilized, what happens, what works, what's like growing, what's not growing. And so thank you for sending those. The only thing I would ask, if you could put an asterisk or something at the bottom, it's hard for me to sort of break down what the cost is per rider. And I'll tell you the reason I'm interested in that is because I think sometimes, at least I know I get, and I assume we all do, get emails about why are the orbits free? And what you find out is the orbits are so well written that even at free, they are often cheaper per rider than paid bus routes that are underutilized. And I think that makes a really strong argument for the orbit and the way we do it. And so that information about what it costs for the orbit per rider, what it costs to or whatever the case may be. The other thing I would say is, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts. I know when we rolled out the larger orbit buses, we got a little bit of feedback about the air braking system. I was wondering if you could just talk about what came of that, if there are solutions to that. You know, the people that I talked to, they said, well, we don't like the bigger buses in our neighborhood. And I said, well, the smaller buses are full. We like the smaller buses. Okay, well, we can run the smaller buses every 7 minutes instead of every 12. And they go, oh, no, just run the big buses every 12. And so they were comfortable with the big buses once they realized the frequency change. But if you could address the air braking issue, because it was a little bit loud.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and we have provided maybe some written information. We haven't formally discussed it at the table, but we actually have sent, and Sam's been in close coordination with Valley Metro and First Transit. We did retrofit some of those braking mechanisms, and so they should be operating a little bit quieter. We worked really closely with the manufacturer, Eldorado, to do that, and so we haven't, some of that has quieted down.
I haven't heard anything in
Yeah,
months
so
now.
we think that's a good sign. We also think that some of those noise questions and complaints were attributed to the size of the bus. That when we introduced these buses last October, they were larger, so that was somewhat, they were larger than the small blue ones that we've had in the system for a while. And really, those are introduced for a variety of reasons. The two big ones being the capacity, really handling the capacity that we have in the orbit system on some of the routes, and then also getting a vehicle that can go all day with clean burning. So some of our older vehicles were not clean burning. They also were having to go back to the yard midday and fuel up, and so it made us have to have more vehicles. So these new vehicles were handling that capacity, and they can go all day. So I think that kind of the shock of that size was part of that, attributed to part of that complaint.
Councilman Arredondo
Thank
Savage?
you, Mayor, really quick. Just a couple of comments. I just want to, give some kudos to Eric, Sam, and Marge. You guys are really a great team to make sure that you're being really strong, solid advocates for Tempe residents and ridership. So I appreciate that. I've enjoyed being the rep, though it's kind of drinking from a fire hose sometimes because there's a lot of information. So I really do appreciate your help kind of trying to decipher that and making sure that we do have a really solid voice at the table. I think that's really important. I did wonder in regards to the contract renewal is why 4 years was the number. I know before it wasn't 4. I think we went with a 3-year contract, and we were a little concerned about moving forward with that. I don't know why 4 seems to be that magic number. Is there some triggers within that 4 years that you know of?
It was before Sam and I. This was actually determined when with the initial contract. So I actually don't know why it was 3 versus 4. I'm sure there's a little bit of magic there, but we can research that definitely and get back to you as to why that is.
I think it would be really good to know. I mean, maybe there is a discounted rate from going to 3 to 4 for whatever it may be. But I think it's kind of really important to make sure that we can justify why we want to do a 4-year contract. And I think any stipulations that are in there, if we do have some concerns along the way. I mean, we've always had some bumpy roads. We've been able to kind of work through those. But I think it's just kind of really important that we pay attention to those things. So I think that would be really good to know. The other thing I think that I would love to see some more information on is our youth ridership. I kind of feel like, the more I learn about ridership in the city is, I think our best chance to really increase that ridership is to educate our young people so they will incorporate that in their culture, as they grow up and move forward and become citizens here and really great residents. But so is there some information we can get about how that program has grown and the actual ridership of those individuals that have gotten a youth bus pass? And then is there a way that we can really maybe enhance or increase education at that younger age to really encourage more young people to do that? And the other thing is, I know you mentioned about working with development, and you mentioned multifamily housing, but I understand the multifamily housing issue, but I think as we grow and all the cranes that are in the air, a lot of that is for office and for new employment. So it's really important that we try to partner with these new developments to figure out how we can get people out of their cars. And I know we have to do that and be creative and flexible, because I think we found that even over at State Farm, even though they do maybe give a Metro Pass, not everybody uses it, actually, nobody. So what is it that we need to do? Maybe it's a park and ride, maybe it's a first mile, last mile, maybe it's some type of incorporation of something that will really pique people's interest. And I get it, I respect the fact that people want to keep their cars, and I don't have an issue with that, and we need to plan for that. But at the same time, I think people maybe aren't aware of the different opportunities that are out there, so they don't have to deal with the traffic too. So I think anytime that we've got a new development that we know is bringing in a lot of new jobs and possibly a lot more traffic, more that we can do to kind of work within that development agreement to kind of figure out how we can include transit options, and that would be really great. Okay, so I already gave you my list of things, but my last thing, and this is actually to Roger, and I've had the opportunity to talk to Roger in the past, is I think it would be really great to see First Transit a lot more visible in Tempe. I know this is a regional contract, I understand that and I appreciate that, but I just don't see that visibility very much, or a lot of partnerships, you know, especially since I've been looking too much. And maybe there would be some opportunities, whether it's working with new developments, maybe it's working with the schools or youth or whatever it may be, to really kind of, I think, see their presence a little bit more. I'd like to be able to increase that somehow. I think it's really important that people realize the partners that we have, and they play a really big role in transportation. So I think to be able to have a little bit more presence here in Tempe would be really important. But again, Mayor, I mean, we're really lucky. We have a fantastic transportation staff, and I really want to thank you guys for what you do. And it's really nice of you to both dress up.
Thank you.
I just want to comment, I agree with Councilmember O'Donnell Savage, but I also really want to make the point, I mean, for having a 3-year contract and the renewals coming up, I hope they get the message that we need to have more of a presence. And this is not the first time we said this in our community. And I know that talking to our partners regionally, that's a concern as well, too.
That's partly why we wanted to have present this information to you before the board meeting, so in case there was information that we needed to carry back, that Councilmember Arredondo Savage can carry back. So this is great feedback, and that's why we wanted to have representatives from both agencies here tonight as well.
One thing I want to ask, on the cost of the bus and rail operations, it's $41 million. That $41 million does not include the future operations for the streetcar, because it's not operating yet. So
correct. We have forecasted the streetcar operations. We have that built into our long-term budget.
Okay.
But that's not showing at that $41 million. That's the budget for this year.
Right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Councilman Navarro?
Yeah, just real quick. So what is going to be presented to the region is basically the extension of the contract. And if it's not extended, or if they want to look into what else is out there, so to speak, they can go for an RFP. Am I correct on this? Or just
yes, that they could. That would be the choice, yeah.
And it's early.
Or even, even some feedback coming from member agencies, including Tempe, could also help to influence maybe some of the language in that extension.
I think the sooner we can get it to them, the better. So if you have some thoughts and ideas after today, I would shoot them to Eric or Sam, and I think they can talk and work with Valley Metro staff.
Great.
For the meeting in October.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Vice Mayor.
So Eric, I really wanted to thank you and your team for taking Tempe resident Joe Strutman's concerns so seriously. He and a number of bicyclists had a very unfortunate experience with a Valley Metro bus driver, and since then, I know that you've brought him into the fold and introduced him to people at First Transit and Valley Metro, and there's been some increased training of bus drivers to improve cyclist safety, and I think that's going to continue. So if you could convey that message, that more of the same, that we need to, also be in alignment with our Vision Zero goal to make sure that we can increase bike safety related to bus drivers. That would be a really important element of the contract renewal, I would think. But thank you so much for taking Joe's concerns so seriously and bringing him into the discussions.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good feedback.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Great job. All the employee stuff. Wait, one last question.
Sit back.
I have to ask, because we've had some employees come from First Transit to our meetings. Has a lot of that stuff been addressed, or are they?
Save the best for last.
Might as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I would, and we have, again, representatives here from both agencies. I would say that Yes, the ones that are in, there were some Tempe issues, facility issues that are within our realm that are, part of our Tempe assets, and those have been addressed, and there's consistency across the board on how those are addressed. And then I'd say there's some ongoing issues and concerns that we're working through with First Transit and Valley Metro. But we feel that we're, especially in the last year, making some good progress on some of those issues that were brought forward, as well as the larger community issues.
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, next item is Tempe Beach Park wireless. I know, I want to congratulate Mr. Wittenberg for his new role.
Thank you. Yeah, Dave told me a week into it, it's like, yeah, your first job is going to be to present to council, so.
Get it over with now.
Right.
Good job,
I'm
Mark.
Mark Wittenberg, Deputy Director, Internal Services over IT, and I have with me Todd Argis, who is our IT Supervisor over the Network Engineering Group. And today we're here to talk to you about wireless in public spaces. We're not really looking for direction, but more to review wireless options for public spaces such as Tempe Diablo Stadium, Tempe Beach Park. Also to inform you about a test that we're going to be doing in Tempe Beach Park to test some wireless options so that we can come back to a later work study and present those options to the City Council. So when we're talking about, oh, that's right, I get the... So when we're talking about wireless in public spaces, one of the things we want to focus on is the outcome or the customer experience. We pretty much all come to expect that as we use our cell phones, we pretty much expect them to work anywhere we go, whether we're going in a park or streets along Mill Avenue. We want to be able to upload selfies, Facebook Live. We want to be able to do all those things with our phones, and that's what we would want to expect in Tempe Beach Park and our public spaces as well. In order to make that happen, there's actually a lot of wires and wireless, so there's a lot of infrastructure to make that happen. And because it's a public space, the cellular companies really don't have infrastructure in those public spaces. And we do have limited Wi-Fi coverage in Tempe Beach Park, but we really would need to augment that. When we're looking at that, we also need to consider what about the event size? Are we looking to provide these options for just typical day use, or are we looking for large events? So those are some of the considerations that we need to think about when we're looking at wireless. The council priorities and measures, the quality of life and value of special events. If we have better Wi-Fi and better coverage in the actual events, we can do things such as provide event information. We can also provide coverage for vendors to use our Wi-Fi in order to do point of sale, those types of things. The other piece is the safe and secure communities. What's important here is if we have a large event, as the event grows in size, the amount of coverage, because there is limited coverage in the park, starts to decrease. And if we were to have a situation in the park, what's the first thing everybody does? They get on their phone, right? Try to dial 911 or text their friends, and that overwhelms the system. And so by augmenting the coverage in the park, it will actually help to provide a more safe safety in the parks. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Todd, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about the differences between Wi-Fi and cellular service and options.
Currently in Tempe Beach Park, there are two types of wireless technology that are available for those who visit the park. The first type of wireless technology that exists there is the same type of technology that we have in our homes using a Wi-Fi router or a wireless access point. Quite often it's referred to as local area network wireless, or also known as LAN Wi-Fi. And at Tempe Beach Park, we have a single antenna, which is revealed here in the slide here. It's mounted up on top of the Tempe Bridge, pointed east or westbound, I'm sorry, to cover the Tempe Beach Park. This infrastructure provides two types of wireless networks. The first one is for the employees, which is secured when the employees log in using their credentials, the same credentials that they use when logging in to their wired workstations. The second wireless network that's provided through this infrastructure is that's the same at the library and recreational facilities. It's the open network that's open to the public. The second type of wireless technology that's available at the park is that of the cellular technology, most commonly used with our mobile phones, but it's not limited to that. And it's typically specific to vendors with an agreed upon monthly based fee. Quite often we recognize with our mobile devices that type of coverage is indicated by an icon such as what's revealed in the slide here next to the cellular bullet item. In Tempe, the cellular networks, the closest cellular antenna is within 2 miles of Tempe Beach Park. Because of this distance, sometimes the coverage can be marginal depending on the density of users, the device capability, objects such as buildings, trees, even the crowd, the density of the users that use that. So what the cellular vendors have done is they have adopted a concept that basically takes a single antenna and divides that signal up into smaller antennas, which uses less power but also increases the wireless coverage in comparison to having a large antenna which consumes a lot of power and can have marginal coverage. Of those two types of concepts, a small cell is specific to the cellular vendors and their frequencies, and then distributed antenna systems is a little bit wider range. It not only services cellular frequencies, but it also provides coverage for public safety, as well as UHF, VHF, and also for local area Wi-Fi. And so with that, I'll give it back to Mark to give a little bit of, or elaborate on where we will go with this in the next few months in our exploration.
And actually, this picture that's up here is a small cell that's in front of the Tempe Transit Building. So if you want to get a look over there, take a walk, and you can see exactly what it looks like and the aesthetics of it. So what our recommendations is we'd like to test two different systems. And the first one is a small cell traditional Wi-Fi hybrid, which is kind of a mouthful. But ASU that's exactly what they're doing, is they had a Wi-Fi system already on ASU campus, and what they did is they partnered with a provider to do small cell, and that's exactly what you see in front of the Tempe Transit Center. We've decided we're not going to test this system ourselves because we'll be able to go over to ASU, test the system, and we've already met with ASU staff in order to discuss how it worked, how the system has been performing, and their vendor relationship. So we feel that with the partnership with ASU, it'll be good as far as figuring out whether this will be a direction we want to head in our public spaces.
That's my
Interrupt you for 1 second. So I read this, I swear I read it, but I didn't understand it. So
Okay.
I'm just going to ask, so would I see a Wi-Fi signal on my phone that said City of Tempe, but it would be coming through as cell phone data? Or would it be cell phone data that I just suddenly had better T-Mobile coverage?
It would actually show up just like if you were out at the Tempe Public Library.
Okay.
So it'd look exactly like that. So you would have the small cell would provide the cellular coverage, and the traditional Wi-Fi would be that Wi-Fi signal that you see on your phone, just like you would see out at the Tempe Public Library, and would operate just like the Tempe Public Library system.
And so then also like the Tempe Public Library system, or even the system here, my phone wouldn't automatically connect because I would need to put in whatever the password of the month is, and that way we don't have 20,000 phones that automatically connect and overwhelm the system, just downloading, updates to Angry Birds in the background.
Exactly, you have it correct.
Okay.
So the second system is what we call a Wi-Fi DAS solution. I've actually brought show and tell, but this is one of the units. And this particular unit does both wireless and cellular. So it's a DAS system and a Wi-Fi as well. And so both signals run on a single device, and then these would be put in the park. For the test, we're going to be putting them up on light poles, but if we were actually to do the installation, they would go into a smart pole and be concealed. This particular device is unique, and we see them in large stadiums because it focuses the radio energy on a specific user. So you can kind of think of it like having a pair of headphones that are just specifically for you listening to this particular device. We plan to install this in September for testing through some of the bigger events that we have in Tempe Beach Park, like the boat parade and some of the concerts and Oktoberfest and those types of things. Once we have that completed, we'll be able to come back to council with some recommendations as far as the cost. We'll have several vendors that we're going to be looking at and the design. With that, are there any questions?
I have a question there.
Councilmember Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. So as I'm sure you're aware, 5G cellular service is supposed to roll out here pretty quickly. It's supposed to come in 2018. It hasn't quite yet, but you know, it's being debated right now if 5G is going to kill Wi-Fi essentially. And I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on that moving forward with the system. How do you expect 5G to impact Tempe and the work you're trying to do at Tempe Beach Park?
The biggest difference is going to be cost, where with the Wi-Fi, I believe the council direction was that we wanted the free Wi-Fi in the Tempe Park. And so free is the Wi-Fi, and then 5G is going to be cellular-based, and so it will still have the fees associated with cellular service. I believe that there's still going to be room for both, just because of the demographic and who's using the system. I mean, if you're using a lot of data streaming, it's going to be cheaper to use the free Wi-Fi than it would be to use the 5G. So I think they can both live together.
Would the Wi-Fi at Tempe Beach Park be the same caliber that we have here at City Hall? Which is not great, by the way. Sorry, I know you're new. I know you're new, so I don't want to.
Well, first of all, we're going to be adding an access point into the city council chambers to address that because of the new agenda management system.
Not just city council chambers.
Right.
The mayor's office, maybe?
The mayor's office.
Well, the whole third floor. Whole building.
Okay.
We're not just saying, I mean, it
Right.
needs to be addressed is what we're saying.
I guess the larger point I'm trying to make is I'm a little bit concerned that 5G is coming out. You know, we already are kind of Wi-Fi deficient in our municipal efforts to create Wi-Fi. I'm just wondering if this is kind of a rabbit hole that will go down, and then in 2 years, no one's going to be connecting to Wi-Fi anymore because we're all just on our 5G device and we can stream and do everything we want to do faster than Wi-Fi can perform.
So there's 2 points. So the first one is Wi-Fi coverage. We have a CIP, and most of that CIP is directed at the Tempe Public Library and trying to provide 100% coverage at the library. And then we really have Wi-Fi at most of the conference rooms, so we don't currently supply the whole building. Now, when we are doing renovations to buildings, so like the council chambers, we are trying to add Wi-Fi to the entire building so that we're covering all the offices and all the spaces. The second part of the question, which is as far as the longevity of Wi-Fi, what I would recommend is providing just limited Wi-Fi for typical daily use, which wouldn't cost as much as trying to design a system that would cover a large event. For a large event, I would recommend beefing up the cellular coverage and allowing the cellular companies to come into the park to install their small cell.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Navarro?
Not knowing my ignorance, but if a 5G and wireless, am I already paying for the 5G if I have service? I mean, does it really matter? So if you talk about a fee,
Yeah.
the fee is not like added on if I'm like, oh, I want to use Wi-Fi, and then on my phone it says you have to pay a fee. I'm already going to pay for it, I imagine, with my cellular company.
Correct. With the cellular coverage, you're already paying a certain plan for data, whether it's an unlimited or so many gigs. So it'll be the same amount that you're currently paying.
Right before this meeting, I was at a Smart Cities Technology Conference that was at SkySong, and I spoke, and I talked to Chris Richardson, their deputy CIO, Chief Information Officer. And I asked, what are you doing with Sun Devil Stadium? Because it's a mass amount of people. And they said, no, I would recommend you talk to Chris Richardson. Is that what they have? Because I was asking him, and he says they're downloading an app, then they're getting the app from ASU, it also gives them access to the Wi-Fi. And I said, I'm going to go to the game on Saturday, so hopefully that, because I know that every time you go to a big environment or an event like that, it's just, you get blocked out. You can't do anything. It's just spinning. So, and that would be, if that's what it is, I could see how that would work at Tempe Beach Park.
Yeah, and the biggest difference with that is, as I explained, this particular device focuses the signal, and so it's like wearing a pair of headphones, if you will, and that signal is directed specifically at your cell phone and listening to your particular cell phone for that conversation.
Councilor Granville?
So I just want to say I really appreciate this presentation. This is night and day compared to some of the presentations we've gotten before on stuff like this. And so this is exactly what I was, hoping the discussion would be. I think also from just a tourism standpoint, I'm really excited about that. It was frustrating to go to, what was it had a baseball theme, that concert that was like
Innings Festival.
The Innings Festival, yeah. And you're wanting to post stuff on Instagram, and you're wanting to promote it, and you're wanting to say like, this is a really great event. You should come down here now. And even your cell phone coverage is locked out because there's 30,000 people down there. And so from the ability to sort of promote the exciting things that are going on in real time, even if it's just with beefed up cell coverage, I think this is a great idea. I'm really excited you're doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we are going to go move. Oh, wait, does anyone have any future agenda items for a future IRS?
I do. I'm still hearing from Tempe residents who are large lot owners about their high water bills. And so I don't know if this is the place to bring it up, but I would like to see if we can have a presentation on what our solutions are for that. You want me to wait till?
Can you get with Don in our Public Works Department? And if you're not satisfied, can you bring it back? Because I think we've been through that. We're already locked in with the rider. Our plan is already there.
Right.
So I would suggest, and I do, hear your concerns, but I think we need to. Why don't you meet with Don first, and if it's not satisfied, then we'll put it on a future IRS. Because the rates we already structured the rates, and I think we had that conversation not too long ago when you first got on.
I would just, the large water, I mean, I know they'd done a presentation before with the large water users, and they had done, I think, in Raintree or something, one person, and I just wanted to see if there was other things that they were coming up specifically to the large lot.
Is that okay with the council? Would you want to see if she can get some information from our Public Works Department and Water Department? And if it's not satisfied, we can come back and we can put it on. Because I think there are some things that we offered with landscaping meters. And I don't know where that is. It could be a Friday packet update, or if that's the information you're looking for, it'd be good for the entire council to know that. Is that okay with the council?
Whatever works for you. Make sure that everyone saw it.
Yes.
Yes.
But Mr. Mayor, this is Lauren. Could we also, with our drought and resiliency work group, we could also address that and have a meeting and discuss that with Councilmember Adams and the water staff?
Yes, I think I was going to be on that, Cal.
Okay. I think Councilman
Right.
Adams is going to be on that committee, the Cal committee.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right.
That's great.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything else? We're going to go ahead and move right into the committee of the whole.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, I'm out here in Los Angeles and hearing some good ideas from ESRI about community engagement and kind of a more updated way of communicating with city councils and a way of tracking the information and the complaints that come in or the issues that come in through the equivalent of a council communicator, but a much more advanced version of that. And I would like to see if we can get an issue review about that, about opportunities to update our council communicator system so that we can track and measure our results more.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Is that tied to 311 or is that just tied to council communicator emails? Lauren?
She said her piece.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was on mute. So what did you say?
Are you tying it? Are you just looking at council communicators, or are you looking at 311 as well?
No, not 311. I don't mean to open up that whole can of worms, but just wanted to look at, the council communicator device and how we measure and track results from that and follow up through that. Because I think there's room for improvement with new software that's come online. I saw a presentation from ESRI. I'm sure there are other companies that are doing similar software, but I think there's perhaps need for tracking the council communicator data that comes in and goes out.
Yeah, there is actually. Nintex and some other stuff out there. Okay. All right, with that, we're going to move on to the committee of the whole. The next item is the committee of the whole. Under this listed under section 4B, audience members have up to 3 minutes to address the council on any items listed on this agenda. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address us under the committee of the whole items? Could you please get my attention now? Seeing none. Item 4A, we are looking for items ready for council direction or status update. We do not have any. Item 4B, we're looking for new items for council consideration. I do have one along with Councilmember QB, and that is, I did receive an email from a resident, Mr. Alexander, about developing some type of a pride event in the city of Tempe. I know we all participate in the Phoenix Pride event, and I would, I'm happy to say that our staff did meet with Mr. Alexander and other members of our community that had a lot of good ideas and how they could work with us on this. And I was hoping if we could get the council blessing, if we could create a working group that I would work on it along with Councilmember Cubie, and we have another space, Councilmember Adams, so that we could really work on Tempe Pride. I think that would be fantastic. It's going to take a lot of cooperation from obviously the city, local organizations like the LGBT organizations, local businesses that work in our community to really help that. I mean, it really fits in line with our strategic goals and what we've been doing. And I think we have a really great part of an opportunity as a city to really showcase something different than what other cities are doing. I partook in a Pride parade in Boston, and it was pretty exciting to see the turnout of that as well. So if that was okay with the council, so the committee would be Vice Mayor QB and Councilmember Adams and myself, look at, see what we can come up with. Not competing with Phoenix, by the way. We don't want to compete with Phoenix. We want to do our own if that's okay. Councilman Granville?
Yeah, I think that's really great. I think you guys will do a great job with it. One of the things that I would ask that you at least discuss, and I'm happy to respect whatever conclusion you come to, is Phoenix did a rainbow crosswalk, I think, somewhere. Would you guys just bring that in as part of your discussion to see if that's if doing a crosswalk somewhere in Tempe, whether it's on Mill Avenue or off of Mill Avenue, as a symbol that is associated with that pride, maybe even painting it in the inauguration with the first parade that we do. Whatever you guys decide's fine, but I'd just love it if you give that some thought as well.
Okay. All right, with that, we'll move on. Next item is item C, items in progress. Does anyone have any items in progress? Councilman Navarro.
Yeah, Mayor, I just, two things I want to bring back, actually, is first the ADOT Pit Park project that we were doing. It fell off the items that were in progress, and also the right-of-way walls. I would like to bring that also back.
What do you mean by that?
We were still working on it, and when on a council meeting, we had it voted off while I was not present.
Was that the one that you weren't here?
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, I'm the one that started it, and you guys voted off.
I could add that.
So I also want to
Mayor?
just,
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Brigitte?
I just want to say for the record, we did look up the ADOT Pit Park, and that was actually a presentation to the full council, and there was follow-up, and that was closed. We can certainly bring it back, but we did review that one for you.
Got it. We have not completed it, though.
Just so you know, I don't think this is on the agenda because it's not a working group. So that would be a new item.
Everyone
Right.
I think we could
We actually
certainly
talked about
consider it
the last
under.
meeting to add it as a new item, too.
Yeah, exactly. Is that how we did it? However you want to do it.
Okay. Is there consensus to bring that back? Because I do recall, and I think it'd be good if Brigitte could send back to the entire council that the minutes of that meeting, because I know it was expensive, and whatever the consensus was Councilman Navarro at that meeting?
Which one?
Yes, I believe so, for the ADOT, yes.
The other one I was not.
Correct.
Shenanigans.
No, I know, but there was a presentation and it was,
No, I'm not talking about ADOT. I'm talking about the right-of-way walls.
oh, right, it was.
So, which is going to be another discussion I want.
Okay, perfect.
Mayor,
Would you
assuming
like-
that gets created, I'd love to be a part of that ADOT Pit discussion group as well.
Ms. Kuiper?
Would you like minutes on both of those
Sure.
items forwarded
Yes.
to you? Okay, will do. Thank you.
And then we'll put it back for future, we're going to bring those committees back. Okay? I do have one thing I need to talk about, my brother's keeper. I'd just like to really thank staff on this initiative. There was a lot of work that was put in by our staff, our community members, and interested parties to really get this designation. And I'm happy to say that this group really had a lot of good dedicated individuals. I know Assistant Chief Angel Carvajal was part of that. And we're still meeting, and we're just making sure that we're moving forward on some of the 3 pillars that we're doing. And this is like an update. We have, of the 3 pillars, we have entering school ready to learn, reading at a grade level by 3rd grade, and then and safe from violence, and provided second chances to some of those individuals under My Brother's Keepers. That's some good information, and I just want to, again, thank staff for a lot of the work that's been done. It's more of an update. We're continuing to work on those 3 pillars. And then, yes, Councilmember Keating.
I'm sorry, I have a new item that I'd like to introduce as well, and I should have done it earlier. Can I still do it right now? It has to deal with the Animal Welfare Working Group. I'd like the Animal Welfare Working Group to also take a look at creating an animal abuse registry for people that are convicted of animal abuse in the city of Tempe. If it's okay if I can look at that.
It's fine.
Cool, thank you.
I just want to, for the record, I am closing out the My Brother's Keeper committee. But we're still going to be our staff will still be working on those 3 pillars. With that,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Related to the Animal Welfare Working Group, just wanted to welcome Councilmember Adams to that group. She's such an animal lover, and I'm so glad to have her on the working group with us. And we've been looking at the whole issue of animal hoarding. It's a complicated issue involving mental health issues, and we've been working with Care 7 and local animal welfare groups to develop a really compassionate approach to this issue. So we're asking for, we gave an update, we're asking a little bit for an extension on that. And the other thing is I wanted to welcome Councilmember Adams to the Tobacco 21 working group as well, and make sure that she's put on that list.
Okay.
Thanks, Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
With that, anything else? Any announcements, Mr. City Manager?
None, thank you.
Just want to recommend or remind everyone, this Saturday is City of Tempe night. It's a blackout playing Michigan State. Make sure you go get your tickets if you don't have them. I think there's our promo code for city employees. Hope to see everyone there. Our next meeting is September 20th, 2018. We are adjourned.
I thought for sure you weren't going to make it after that first presentation.